Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Carl from Carl's Opinion. Welcome to our Monday night live call-in show and live video call-in show. So if you want to appear by video call or live phone call, hey, there's the numbers. 775-273-8970. I see Amy out there, and actually we're going to start by talking about immigration. So I'm actually glad you're in the chat room. If you have anything to add, please feel free. If you want to call in, kind of give us kind of on the ground kind of reporting, that'd be great. Oh, gonna try to stay awake. No problem. All right, let's get to our first story. ICE, icy surge of fake families at border. Yeah, well, there you go. All right, let's take a look here. All right, the number of immigrants living in the U.S. illegally who fraudulently posed as families with children at the border has soared. Authorities reported Monday saying they have opened about 100 investigations and found more than 25 suspected cases in April alone. And if you remember correctly, I covered a story just maybe last week, actually, and it was about a kid in Texas. I think the kid was like 3 years old, and Customs Border Patrol came up on a whole group of people, and these people left the 3-year-old behind by himself in the cornfield when they all ran away. And at the time, I'm saying, like, you know, I hope those weren't the parents with them. And my guess, it could have been. I can't see any parent leaving their kid behind in a cornfield, hoping that Customs Border Patrol would find them. I mean, say they didn't. You know, that'd be pretty bad. So, my guess is that was probably one of those fake families, where they maybe kidnapped this poor kid or paid the parents off or whatever and grabbed this kid, got some fake ID or whatever they had to do, or maybe no ID. Kid's 3 years old, say, well, we never got a birth certificate, etc. That's our kid, and, as long as they get across. Then once, Customs Border Patrol were on top of them, they figured, well, heck, we don't need this kid anymore. He's just, dead weight. He's not ours. We just leave him behind. And they talked about how Customs Border Patrol actually, the one guy went out and bought him some clothes. The other guys were like hanging with him until the social workers showed up, and they're watching movies with him and stuff. They felt really bad for the kid. It's not his fault. He just got dragged up there, and he's 3 years old. So I mean, what's he going to say? Like, those aren't my parents? I mean, he's three, and he really couldn't even communicate with the border patrol agents. So continue on with this story. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement said it deployed 6 new teams of agents to the border in the last 2 weeks to combat smuggling fraud, and it's already paying off with the number of investigations. Acting ICE Director Matthew Albin said he sent the teams down to try to weed out fake families using forged documents to game U.S. immigration policy. Under a policy imposed by a federal judge in 2015, adults who show up at the border with their children are supposed to be held in detention for 20 days or less, not more. That isn't enough time to hear their immigration cases, so their families are released and often don't bother to show up for their deportation cases, instead disappearing into the shadows. And about a week or two ago, I covered another story where ICE had reported that they were releasing 1,000 migrant family members per day. That's 365,000 per year because they had no place to hold them, and they can only hold a family member for 20 days or less, and there's no way these judges can get to be able to hear those cases that fast. So anyway, the story goes on to say, again, this is from the Washington Times, that has created an incentive for adults to abduct or borrow children to make the journey north, hoping to fool border authorities. Let's see here. ICE, along with our partners at CBP, remain committed to protecting children by ensuring they are not used as pawns by individuals attempting to gain entry into the United States through fraud, Mr. Albin said. Sometimes the fraud is based on adults not being related to the children they're smuggling, or being or relations but not parents. In other cases, parents lie about their children's ages. Let me turn this up a little bit. Claiming they are under 18 when in fact they are adults. In one April 18 case, authorities say they detected a Honduran man traveling with a 7-year-old child. The man presented a false birth certificate for the juvenile, but ICE says the child was completely unrelated. There's a big covered a story about 3 weeks ago about how there's a big black market now in Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, and Guatemala, for doing fake birth certificates. and probably with the assistance of the government workers, because again, the government is using our country as a release valve. So, volume's a bit weak. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Turn that up. There we go. Hopefully it's a little bit better. We'll try that. All right. Thanks, Effie. Hopefully it's a little bit better there. All right. How's that? Hopefully that's good. Hopefully I'm back up to where I should be. Let's see. There we go. All right. So it's probably a little bit too loud now. I probably just zapped everybody in the headsets. Sorry about that, guys. But let me see. Let me just look at the lines real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, that's pretty good right there. Okay. All right. So yeah, and so remember the government's using our country as a release valve for people who are maybe complaining about how crummy their country is. And as long as the government keeps encouraging people like, well, you don't like it here, leave. Oh, and by the way, we'll help you leave, and we'll help you get fake birth certificates, fake identities. We'll give you a few bucks for the road north. We'll hook you up with some of these, leftist organizations from America who will give you money and food and stuff. And no is good now. Okay. Okay, good deal. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. So. Anyway, so there's a big industry there right now because they know how to game the system. The leftists from this country, the Soros organizations, are telling these people exactly how to gain entry into the United States. They know they can't be held more than 20 days, and they say once that's over, that 20 days you're released, you can just disappear. They'll move into a neighborhood with a lot of fellow Spanish-speaking people, and they'll just kind of blend right in, and they'll get fake Social Security numbers, fake IDs, steal somebody's identity, and go to work or not, or game the system and receive benefits, whatever it takes. But if they stayed in their country and they complained loud, kind of like they do when they get here, like I always said, if 5 million people marched on Mexico City and demanded a free market economy and reform, and kind of the same form of government we have up here, and how people are allowed to use become entrepreneurs and actually live the American dream, people would just stay in Mexico. I mean, like I said before, it's a really beautiful country. The interior is really beautiful. Along the coast is nice. There's no reason to leave, and there's no reason Mexico has to look like Mexico. It could look like the United States. It doesn't have to look like Mexico. They have lots of natural resources. They have a great tourism industry. They just have to get rid of the crime, and the crime, a lot of that is caused by the corruption of the government because a lot of the government leaders are paid off by the cartel. Suddenly they have a few $1 million in a Swiss bank account or something. So, they can make it better. They really can. But as long as the people who are smart enough to complain take off and don't stay and try to make the country better, for their fellow citizens, it's never going to get any better. And that's the same thing for the Central American countries as well. And see, in another case, it goes on to say, okay, well, back up here. The man was charged. This is a person who had the false birth certificate. False birth certificate for the juvenile. The man was charged with illegal entry and misdemeanor, and the child was deemed an unaccompanied alien child, a UAC, turned over to social workers at the Department of Health and Human Services. In another case, on April 22nd, ICE agents identified 2 men traveling with 2 people the men claimed were their juvenile sons. In fact, the 2 were 23 years old and were pretending to be minors. They must have been pretty small. All 4 are being prosecuted for visa fraud and for making false statements. The Obama administration had warned federal judges that children would be abducted if they limited family detention to 20 days. The courts rejected those warnings and imposed a 20-day limit, and the abductions indeed have come to pass, officials say. See, that's a funny thing. Back when Obama was in the White House, even though he was for DACA and the Dreamers and all that stuff, he was actually trying to stop it from coming across, and that's when you had Schumer making his speeches about illegal aliens and they have to stay in line and all this stuff, and a lot of other liberals, Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, etc., and they were all in favor of strong border security, stopping these people from coming across. And then the only thing that changes is Donald Trump gets elected. He says the same thing. They said, "Oh, we can't agree with that. God forbid we agree with something Donald Trump said," even if they had been saying it for years. So, anyway, top Department of Homeland Security officials have testified to Congress that children are being recycled or brought to the U.S. by one adult that's smuggled back to Central America to be brought again by another adult. Now, that's really disgusting. I mean, this poor kid, You take a trip to the United States just to become a pawn. Then he gets recycled, told okay you're going back. He has to make the same trip back again. Then when he gets to the Honduras or wherever, then he's brought back again. Basically, he's a slave. So you pretty much have child slavery going on here, right here. I mean, I'm sure this kid's not volunteering for this, and I'm sure they're not paying him anything. He's a kid. So, they're just saying, you're going, and that's it. He's probably kidnapped, doesn't know where his parents are, probably scared shitless. But, nobody cares. They don't want that story out there. Former Homeland Security Secretary Kristen Nielsen said agents found one woman who was paid $1,500 per child to bring them back to Guatemala to be used again in future trips. Yeah, the parents are paid, not the kids. She claimed to do this 13 times, Ms. Nielsen said in the White House event in February. Wow, I don't remember hearing about that. I wonder why. The Border Patrol says it has begun fingerprinting children with the permission of parents to try to crack down on recycling. Also, Monday, the Pentagon said it approved 320 new personnel to be deployed to take pressure off Border Patrol agents overwhelmed by the surge of families. Ooh, a whole 320. Yay. Boy, we got a whole bunch of people now. Let's see. Oh, hey, I see Disabled Vet here. Effie, of course. Bori for America. Let's see who we got. And Amy D. Hey, guys. And D.A. Archer. Good to see you here. Jervis. Hey, Jervis. Remember you from last night. And, all right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for coming by. And if you guys want to call in, 775-273-8970. If you want to appear by a video phone call, it's real simple. If I've sent you a link in the past, email back and forth, then just put in the chat, hey, send me a link. If I haven't, then you got to email me to that email address, ca2jogger@gmail.com. Now, I don't keep the email open. I'm looking at different screens. So just put in the chat, say, hey, I just sent you an email, and I'll grab it. In the email, if your email has your real name on it, but it's not your username, make sure you put your username in the email. Like, hey, this is, like, for instance, Bori for America. So I'll know it's you, and then I'll send you the link. Because a lot of times people, like my email address, ca2jogger. Well, Jogger, that's my last name. That's my real name, obviously. I mean, I don't know who'd make up a name like that. I don't think anybody. But anyway, so just say, like I would say if I sent you an email, hey, I'm Carl's Opinion. Now, when I send you the link, when you come on, you're not going to be able to see me right away. You're going to be in a different screen. Don't hang up. It doesn't mean you're not on. It just means you've come on. It's just you're in a different screen. I will get to you, and then I will bring you onto the site. And once I do that, then you'll be able to see me, and everybody will be able to see you as well. So that happened to Douchebag last night. He came on. He goes, "Oh, I didn't see you, so I hung up." And I'm like, "Oh, no, because you're not in the output screen when you first come on. The only thing in the output screen right now is what you're seeing on YouTube right now. So when you come on, you're not going to see anything except yourself. You might see me, but that's about it at most." All right, so let's see. Let's continue on. Officials said as much as 40% of agents' time is in some hard-hit areas of the border was spent on the babysitting duties instead of on patrol. 40% of agents' time just spent on just like holding somebody's hand and keeping an eye on people. That's great. DoD personnel will assist in driving high-capacity CBP vehicles to transport migrants, providing administrative support, including providing heating, meal distribution, and monitoring the welfare of individuals in CBP custody, and attorney support to ICE. Lieutenant Colonel James Davis, a spokesman for Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan, said in a statement. The deployment, which had been requested by Homeland Security, will last through September 30 of the fiscal year and cost $7.4 million. Let's see. Next story going to get to. This kind of goes right along with it. Prosecutors sue in bid to create sanctuary courthouses by kicking out ICE agents. So now prosecutors in several different cities want to make sure ICE can't arrest people when they come to court. They don't want to let them in the courthouse. So now, just to let you know, generally when someone appears on a civil case, it's generally not been the practice to serve somebody with a subpoena. But I mean, if there's a criminal appearing on a civil case, it's like, well, like say you get in an automobile accident, like a hit and run, and you're suing. Well, in order for you to win, you're the plaintiff, you have to go to court. Well, say you're also wanted for murder. Well, it doesn't mean the cops say, well, we have this old common law rule that, we don't arrest people when they come to court legally. No, tough shit. You're wanted for murder. So, we're going to come get you. That's the way it is. So anyway, so prosecutors are tired of, I guess, ICE agents arresting people when they're in court. Well, I mean, if you're illegal and you're wanted by ICE, well, then maybe you should just turn yourself in. That would sure save a lot of hassles. Maybe let's check out this story. All right, so again, prosecutors sue in bid to create sanctuary courthouses by kicking out ICE agents. Several Massachusetts district attorneys filed a federal lawsuit Monday demanding a judge order ICE to stop enforcing the law at state courthouses, saying too many people are refusing to be witnesses or show up for cases because they fear they'll be deported. Prosecutors in Middlesex and Suffolk counties said there's long been a common law privilege protecting anyone doing official business at a courthouse, and they said arresting people, either witnesses, bystanders, or criminals, breaks that. That's kind of what I was just talking about. But still, if you're a criminal and there's a warrant for your arrest, to which ICE is looking to deport you, ICE is looking to take you into custody, that doesn't really count. Sorry. Entire communities now view the Massachusetts courts as places where they cannot go for any reason, greatly impeding access to justice and undermining the administration of justice in these communities. See, I like how what they do is they start the story off like about 5 steps ahead of where they should be starting it off. Okay, they're starting it off with, well, these people can't feel like they can't access the court system. Well, okay, these people are here illegally. They shouldn't be here to begin with. They shouldn't be able to access the courthouses. They shouldn't be able to access health care. They shouldn't be able to access Medicaid or Medicare. They shouldn't be able to access, Section 8 housing. They shouldn't be able to access anything. They shouldn't be allowed to be here to steal people's identities, to commit identity theft, and to commit other crimes once they get here. Because remember, when the first thing they do when they cross that border is they're breaking our laws, and then we say, "Oh, we want you to respect our laws." Well, and then immigrant rights groups say, "Oh, they'll respect our laws." Well, they just broke one getting here, and you just told them it was okay to do it. And now we're saying it's okay for you to access all our legal systems and everything else. And while you're doing all this, don't worry, you're safe. You won't get deported. Well, no. Again, they're starting this argument 5 steps ahead of where it should be. It should be back where it began. Whereas, well, if you're here illegally, one, you should do the right thing and turn yourself in. You should have a crisis of conscience and say, "Oh, I'm breaking the law. Hey, I see some ICE agents. Let me go turn myself in, and let me go back home and try to fix up my own country, and petition my government." And not go protesting, just like you protest in the streets in the United States. Hey, do that in your own country. Protest down there. And then when your country becomes like the United States, because you've changed it, then you won't want to come here. For all you know, we'll be crossing over our border to get to your country. Who knows? That'd be funny. I would laugh. But until then, stay home in your country, fix it. And I'm sorry, if you're here illegally, no, you don't get to access all these different services, including the court systems or anything else. You're here illegally. You're breaking the law. Turn yourself in. Get deported. Do the right thing. That's what I'm saying. All right. So anyway, the lawsuit has produced a strange alliance. The prosecutors were joined in suing by the Committee for Public Counsel Services, which is a public defender service, and Lawyers for Civil Rights. The lawsuit comes less than a week after federal prosecutors won an indictment against a state judge charged with helping a twice-deported illegal immigrant escape from a courtroom to avoid arrest by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Yeah, I know you guys saw this story. I think I covered it myself. Basically, this female judge, knew that ICE was outside, and so instead of this person having to walk out the door, intentionally had this person be escorted by one of her staff and go out the back door. Basically, obstruction of justice right there. Let's see. The case made national headlines, but Monday's lawsuit says the bigger danger is on the other side of the ledger, where they said victims aren't coming forward and cases aren't being made on a range of matters, from sexual assault to housing and employment violations. Again, real simple solution. You're here illegally, turn yourself in, and you won't have to be a victim of a crime inside the United States. Then you can go back home to your country, and you can be a victim of a crime there. And not to mention, they say the reason why they're leaving there because it's so violent. But it sounds like we have a lot of violence in this country. Hence the reason these people are victims of crimes, from sexual assault to all kinds of other things. And they need to come to the courthouse to testify. Well, I guess it's violent here too. In fact, you know what? It's really, really violent here. It is so violent here. You don't want to come here. Look, These people have to sue just to get you into the courthouse to testify as a victim. Look how terrible it is here. You should go back home. I bet it's not nearly as bad there. I mean, there you can access the courthouse. You don't have to worry about getting arrested. So go back home. Again, a clear consensus has emerged in Massachusetts and across the nation among all stakeholders in the legal community that ICE's civil courthouse arrest policy has resulted in a noticeable chill on court access and, as a result, on access to justice. Yeah, justice is they're committing a crime. They're criminals. Justice demands they be incarcerated or incarcerated and then deported. That's what justice demands. They're breaking the law. The prosecutors in the lawsuit blamed the last 2 years. Aha, Donald Trump, evil Donald Trump. Boogity boo boo. Boogity boo. Boogity boo. Boom. Anyway, there you go. But anyway, so again, it's evil Donald Trump doing all this, whatever. So anyway, so before anybody gets mad at me, yeah, I'm the one who hit him. Look, I've had my last 2 videos blocked by YouTube, okay, because I got minors on the site. I'm not having this one blocked either. The last 2, you notice you can't see them. They're not up. Last night and Saturday nights, they're not there. Even though we were on last night, even though we were on Saturday night, they're gone. So anyway, so they were on for a bit, and they were taken down. So, sorry, if you're a minor, you can't be on the site. If you're under 18, can't be on the site. Sorry. I put way too much time and effort into this, like everybody else does who has a site. I can't take any chances. So, my last 2 videos were blocked, and I'm sorry I can't allow any minors on the site. I apologize. I'm sorry it sucks, but, YouTube's going after conservative sites. They're looking for any excuse to come after us, and I don't need to give them an excuse or a reason to do that. So, anyway. So, I apologize in advance for that, but, actually, I apologize after I did it, but I'm sorry. It's, I can't, YouTube's again looking just to mess with us, and I'm just not dealing with it. Yeah, last night's video was taken down too. So, well, he came on, and he shouldn't have been here. It was age restricted, and it was on anyway. So, I got a big event coming up. I got live streaming. I got 3 days. I paid for advertising, the whole 10 yards. A lot of things went into this already. And if I can't live stream this weekend, a whole lot of money just got spent for nothing. And so I can't take any chances right now. Sorry, guys. It's not, it's YouTube. It's not me. So got to play. They're a private company. We're capitalists. They own the thing. We have to play by their rules. If we don't like it, then I should get off YouTube, but I'm not. So I'm on YouTube. I have to play by their rules. If this was my company and I said certain rules and somebody wanted to be on it, they have to obey those rules. So it's their company. It's their rules. We just have to deal with it. And if we don't like it, we have to go to another site. But trust me, we all know we've been on those other platforms. None of them are as good as this one. It's just what happens, unfortunately. All right. Anyway, so ICE says it doesn't formally track how many of its arrests are made in the courthouses, but the agency considers courthouses to be good places to make arrests because they are secure locations. Exactly. One, they know the people going in there have already had to go through a metal detector or have been patted down. So they know they don't have any weapons on them. No knives, no guns, no mace, nothing. So they know when they make the arrest, they don't have to, nobody's going to get hurt. I mean, the people they're arresting aren't going to get hurt because they're not dumb enough to challenge, ICE officials who are armed. And we don't have to worry about any ICE officials getting hurt. And we don't have to worry about any innocent, people, on the sidelines getting hurt, innocent bystanders. So, it's not a bad idea. And again, if you want access to a courthouse, hey, if you're legal like in Honduras, I bet you can access their courthouses, no problem. But again, you're not legal here. So individuals entering courthouses are typically screened by law enforcement personnel to search for weapons and other contraband. Accordingly, civil immigration enforcement actions taken inside courthouses can reduce safety risks to the public, targeting aliens and ICE officers and agents, a spokesman said in an email statement. ICE acknowledges on its website that the number of courthouse arrests is rising. The agency blames sanctuary cities, who in the past would have allowed their officers to turn over migrants, but who now are restricted from cooperation, forcing ICE officers to make the individual arrests themselves. In such instances, ICE officers and agents make every effort to take the person into custody in a secure area out of public view. Yeah, they're not trying to embarrass anybody. You know, we know we know these people in law enforcement. They want to, they don't, and plus they don't want a scene. You know, it's the last thing they want. But and they go on to say, but this is not always possible. The agency says further, when these arrests do occur, ICE makes every effort to ensure that the arrest occurs after the matter for which the alien was appearing in court has concluded. So, I mean, they're doing everything they possibly can. You know, they're doing the best. They're doing the best they can. But again, the sanctuary cities law normally, you know, they have laws that say local law enforcement you cannot contact. It's against the law for you to contact ICE. If you have someone who you know is an illegal alien in your custody, you know he is. Before you could contact ICE and say, hey, we got somebody here. Do you want to pick him up? And generally they're given 48 hours to come get him or not. And if they don't get him in 48 hours, well, they let him go. They say, well, it's on you. You didn't come get him. But now they can't, now it's against the law. I'm not sure they made it a felony or misdemeanor for a member of law enforcement to contact ICE, say, hey, they're here. We have two illegal aliens here. Do you want to pick them up or not? We'll hold them for you for, again, like 24 or 48 hours. Not a long time, but you know. But now it's against the law for them to even do that. All right, let's take a look here. Okay, and this is the story you just saw a few seconds ago, but it's a little more detail here. So let's kind of go into it here. Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan has approved a Homeland Security request to assign 320 personnel to babysit illegal immigrants, driving them, feeding them, and checking on their welfare, the Pentagon announced Monday. The goal is to free up Border Patrol agents currently assigned to those duties so they can get back to patrolling the front lines. The troops Mr. Shanahan has assigned the new duties will not be engaged in actual law enforcement, and there will be Homeland Security officers present to handle actual custody of illegal immigrants. He said the deployment has been approved through September 30th at a cost of $7.4 million. DoD personnel will assist in driving high capacity. I think we covered this already. And let's see. Border Patrol has been overwhelmed by the surge of illegal immigrants from Central America. More than 50,000 families were caught jumping the border in March alone, shattering previous records and swamping local communities where the migrants are being released. 50,000 families. Wow. In 1 month, in the month of March. Agents in some hard-hit areas are spending as much as 40% of their time engaged in welfare checks, transporting migrants for processing, or taking them to clinics or hospitals for medical checkups, what was referred before as babysitting duties. Let's see what this is. Trump is the best. Oh, wow. Okay. All right, guys. Hey, thanks. Appreciate it. Shout out to the moderators. Shout out to the mods. Good job, guys. All right. Let's see. Agents in some hard-hit areas are spending as much. Okay, we checked that. Okay, Customs and Border Protection, which oversees border operations, has already reassigned hundreds of officers from the ports of entry to assist with those babysitting duties. There we go. Forcing closure of some lanes of traffic at ports of entry where the officers were taken from. Oh, that must be a mess. There's already a mess down there at those ports of entry to get across, or now it must be a real big mess. The Defense Department personnel will provide still more manpower for the support duties. Anyway, phone lines are open if you want to call in, 775-273-8970. And if you want to appear by video call, just put in the chat that you want to appear by vMix video call. I'll send you a link. And like I said, if I've already sent you an email in the past, you've already appeared, just put in the chat, hey, send me an email. And if you haven't, then you have to actually email me so that I can reply back to you. And it's a real easy process. I guess anybody who's been through it, it's painless. I promise it doesn't hurt. It's very simple. So, okay. Anyway, so let's go back here. DoD personnel will not perform any law enforcement functions in any situation that requires DoD personnel to be in proximity to migrants. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, law enforcement personnel will be present to conduct all custodial and law enforcement functions and provide force protection of military personnel. So there you go. Now, we got a little bit of good news we can get to here. Kind of like this. There we go. This is from the Wall Street Journal by John Hilsenroth. Signs point to sustained growth. Excellent. This is it's not just little growth, it's like really big growth. This is really, really cool. Anyway, for much of the past year, it looked plausible that a faster growing U.S. economy was simply running on a sugar high of temporarily elevated demand. Now, signs are emerging that the supply side of the economy, workers and the tools and machines they use to produce goods and services, is becoming energized, improving the chances that faster growth can be sustained. That's pretty cool. It's not a sure thing. It's also not clear who or what deserves credit for driving it. Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. Well, you remember, this is the Wall Street Journal. These are not generally known to being like Trump fans, if you will, okay? They were all against Trump winning the election, actually. They were all in the tank for Hillary Clinton. But anyway, still, it's okay. It's not a sure thing. It's also not clear who or what deserves credit for driving it, but it's a great development for Americans if it continues, regardless of your political coloring. If sustained, it would mean more income growth in the long run with less inflation eating away at those income gains. You can boost economic growth in the short run by juicing demand, such as with tax cuts or spending increases. But you can only sustain faster growth in the long run with more workers producing goods and services more efficiently. Without labor force and productivity growth, demand dissipates on its own, absent additional outside stimulus. Right, you got to keep priming the pump. You got to keep hitting it. If you don't have the labor force, and productivity growth, and if you're just trying to do artificial things to increase demand, it's generally only a temporary fix. Or the increased demand strains the economy's resources, spurring inflation and a central bank response of higher interest rates that in turn slows growth or causes recession. Right. Or the demand goes up too quick, you hit it too hard, you get too much demand, and there's not enough supply to keep up with demand. Prices rise, it spurs inflation, and then here comes the Fed, raising interest rates and then slowing the growth. And then, or like he says, even causing a recession. So anyway, if the supply side is moving up, productivity and the means of production and labor participation, that's something that can be sustained. The Commerce Department's report Friday that the economy grew at a 3.2% annual rate in the first quarter suggested faster growth is being sustained with very little inflation. Two reports in the coming days will shed more light on whether the supply side forces of the economy are kicking in and helping drive that upturn. On Thursday, the Labor Department will report its estimate of the productivity growth of U.S. workers in the first quarter. Given what's already known about how many hours Americans worked and how fast output grew, economists are optimistic. Macroeconomic Advisors, a modeling firm, estimates productivity was up 2.3% in the first quarter from a year earlier. If that proves correct, it would be the largest increase since 2010 when the economy was bouncing back from recession, a time in the business cycle when productivity growth tends to be high. Between 2010 and 2017, productivity growth averaged only just 1% a year. So even though that first year, on the first year back, well, of course, productivity was up to, big numbers in 2010 because it was at rock bottom. But then after that first big bounce from 2010 to 2017, it only averaged just 1% a year. It's Obama economics. That's kind of what Biden is running on right now. It's like, yeah, vote for Joe Biden. You'll get more of this. 1.5% GDP annual growth, productivity growth, just 1% a year. We can all be poor again. Or just above poverty, just living just enough to, a living wage job situation, just enough to put food on the table and a roof over your head and keep the electric on sometimes. That's Joe Biden. So, and I was reading a story here today, and it was talking about how, Biden was at this union place, and these Teamsters were like, oh, yeah, we want to go back to the way it was. It's like, where are these? Okay, hold on. I got a phone call coming in. Okay. There we go. Disabled vet, you're on.
Hey, Carl, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. How you doing?
Well, fair to partly winded, but, it's just old age. Yeah, I was just reading the chat, and I saw, can't remember which person it was, but saw that somebody said that we needed to shut down the border, and I wanted to kind of go over the pros and cons of that that potential thing. Um, the simple reality is, if we close the borders, we
go
hurt
ahead.
ourselves just as much as we hurt them.
Well, hold on, hold on,
Because
hold on. Whoa. Okay. Boy, I'm glad I changed headsets right there. Hold on. There we go. Whoa, that was terrible. Yep. Hold on. All right, disabled. Hey, do me a favor. Just count like 1 to 10 real quick.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and what the hell comes after that?
10. All right, you're good. All right. Yeah, I got
All
it.
right.
I got it. Got
Well,
it.
I've known I've been good for a long time, but I appreciate you giving me the input.
All right.
Um,
Yeah, I had a
all
feeling.
right,
I had
you
a
got me
feeling all of a
good and
sudden.
clear now?
Yeah, you're good. You're good to go, man. You're good to go.
Okay. Well, I was just in the chat. I saw somebody that wrote down that we needed to close the border, and I wanted to discuss that a little bit, because it's just not as simple as saying, okay, the border's closed. Um, we do have good immigration going on. We have day laborers that come from Mexico, and they come into the U.S., they do their thing, and then they go back home to Mexico. We have a lot of freight and a lot of things that benefit our country that come through the ports of entry, along with the garbage. But what will happen is, if we close the borders, we close the ports of entry, and that stops a lot of things, but it doesn't stop the illegal immigration, because there's still over 1,000 miles of easily accessed open country that people continue to walk through. So it's not as simple as just saying, okay, well, let's just close it up, because there's a lot of things that are going to happen on both sides if that does happen.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, I mean, we stand to lose a lot in trade if we close it up, but it's getting to the point where desperate times require desperate measures. And I know, look, a lot of people are going to get hurt. It's just like when I tell people, look, we can all shop at Walmart and buy a lot of cheap stuff, but a lot of American workers get hurt in the process. Or we can ask for lower oil prices, but then we don't have an American oil industry, and we lose a lot of American workers. So sometimes, in order to get
Right.
things done, we all have to go through a little bit of pain. We all have to sacrifice a little bit. We have to maybe pay a little bit more for gasoline at the pump, so that we have an American oil industry. Because if oil prices per barrel fall too low, oil company in the United States with our higher wages can't sustain an oil industry in this country, and all those people get laid off and lose their jobs. And then to make matters worse, then that means we're then susceptible to oil embargoes a la 1973, 1978, from the Gulf states, if we piss them off, or we don't
Right.
make somebody happy in the right way. So, sometimes, to be a country, you have to make sacrifices for the good of your fellow Americans, and for the good of your neighbor. That's the way this country, it seems like it's
Right.
always been. It seems like how it became the greatest country in the world. So, we may have to close the border. We may have to we'll all suffer a little bit of pain. We may have to pay a little bit more for produce at the grocery stores or whatever. But, we have to get something done drastically within the confines of our Constitution. And I think
Well,
it's the right move to do. I
the,
think if things don't change, we have to shut down the border for sure.
well, the point I was making, though, is, yeah, I agree with that. I understand that you have to have pain to get things accomplished sometimes, but will it actually correct the core issue? And my thought is that it might put a little hesitation in it, but if you have thousands of miles of open country and your idea is to stop illegals from crossing over the border, have you really accomplished that by closing the ports of entry? Because that's all they're going to be able to successfully close. They're not going to be able to close the border.
No,
Because
no,
it's
no.
wide open.
Okay, I agree. That's not the point, though. The point of closing the ports of entry is that who gets hurt more? We have a trade deficit with Mexico. Mexico gets hurt way more than we do. It's pretty much extortion. It's saying, if you don't stop this crap from coming through your country to get to our country, we're going to close down the border. And a lot of what they export to us and we import is produce. Well, those produce can't sit on the truck. We're coming into summertime. That produce can't sit on the trucks for 2 weeks in the open, hot air. Okay, that's going to go bad, and nobody's
Right.
going to buy it. And those people down there are going to lose a lot of money. And now what's going to happen is the people who own those ranches down in Mexico, these aren't little subsistence farmers. These are guys with some serious money. These are guys who get you elected. This is, like up here we have like really rich guys who get you elected. Well, down there they really have some really rich guys who really get you elected. And if they say, "Hey, we're losing money, and if I lose money, you're going to be out of office," things will get done. So that's what Trump is hoping to do, is to put pressure on these ranchers, the big ones, the guys with the big bucks, who get people elected or get people unelected or kicked out of office or run out of office, and they'll put pressure on the government to change, and then the government will start cracking down on the migrants coming across from Central America. That's what the point of that is.
Well, I can see the point there with the extortion measure. I guess I wasn't thinking that far into the box, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if we can get Mexico to, get off their ass and maybe do something, then that would be great.
Well, they can stop it yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, they just say stop. I mean, they just send their federales. I mean, those are some badass dudes. I mean, they were told to stand down last time, but if you give them the green light, you green light these guys. Trust me, they're not getting beat up again. Okay, it's not going to happen. I mean, trust me. You say use all force necessary to stop these people. These people are being stopped. That's the end of the story.
Right. Yeah. Well, see, okay, my cloud has been removed from my eyes because I didn't think about the extortion thing. I didn't think about us pressuring Mexico themselves. All I was thinking about was the transition of borders. But, yeah, I mean, if we can get the federales on it and do that kind of thing, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, that little road, remember now.
Pressure from us compared to the cartels.
Right.
I mean, they seem to run the show down there, so I think we would literally be putting them into a almost a silent state of war, I guess, because of the cartels against their government. Well,
that's funny. In a way, the cartels sent a lot of drugs to those ports of entry. So, those cartels pay off a lot of those federal government workers and the elected officials. So the cartels are losing money. Then maybe they'll put pressure. They'll put pressure on the government, also saying, "Hey, man, you're costing us money. What's the deal? And we want you to, stop these migrants so we can keep sending our drugs across to the United States."
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad I called because I saw something from one perspective. You just gave me another perspective, and that's why it's called the Disabled Vest. No, wait, that's a different channel. I'm sorry. Just kidding. But yeah, it's cool. That's how this is supposed to work. But,
right.
All right. Well, I got mine in. Let somebody else have a call now.
Okay.
Y'all hurry up and call us, man. It's good stuff. Communicate.
Hey, very good, man.
Thanks a lot.
Have a good one.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
All right, and to everybody in the chat, like I said, I have no problem promoting other people's sites. But what I do have a problem is coming onto my site and advertising that somebody else is live right now. So don't do that. I don't go onto other people's sites and say, "Hey, I'm live right now," or send somebody over to somebody else's site and say, "Hey, Carl is live right now. Come on over." I don't do that. That's rude. That's rude. Okay? I guess you grew up in a barn. You have no manners. Well, anyway, you're off the site. Anybody else wants to do that, they'll be off the site too. So don't do that. That's just rude. Okay? Jesus Christ. Sometimes you feel like you're dealing with children. Or just people with no manners. I mean, I don't get it. So there you go. Anyway, anybody else wants to call in, please go right ahead. The phone number is 775-273-8970. Again, that's 775-273-8970. So, we were talking about the economy. Let me grab some water real quick. Hold on. Anyway, all right. So we're talking about the economy, the Wall Street Journal story here. So let's continue on with this. We were on the second column near the top. Up. Look at that. I'm covering it up. Hold on. Let me change this real quick. All right. Hold on. Give me a sec. All right. There we go. Let me increase this a little bit too here. See a little bit better. There we go. All right. Let me try one more time. There we go. Okay. Yep. All right. So let's see. 2010. Okay, we're talking about Obama's economy from 2010 to 2017. There you go. On Friday, the Labor Department will release its monthly job market report. As always, let me turn this up. As always, let me turn this up a little more. There we go. Okay, there I am. Yeah, what I'm trying to do is when the caller comes on, is keep my volume equal to the caller's. And the caller comes in a little bit lighter because it's going through a little bit different system. So I'm trying to keep my volume equal to the caller's volume, so it's not like you guys are having to turn the volume up and down, back and forth kind of stuff. I noticed that when somebody's calling in, Amy D. Amy D, you're on. How you doing?
Hi, Carl. How are you?
Doing good. Yeah, I figured with those
Okay.
immigration stories, you could maybe offer us a little bit of insight. You're kind of on the ground with that. So, what do you got? Anything?
Yeah. So the hotel I'm staying in is full of Border Patrol agents and military. So for all
Really?
the people that are wondering where the military is, they're here.
Oh, good.
But what people don't understand is the posse comitatus. And
Yeah,
I've
please
talked to you,
explain.
or I've talked to you about that before. So I don't understand it fully.
Oh, you don't? Oh, okay.
You have to, and I understand a little bit. So what I understand is the active duty military cannot protect our borders.
Well,
President
no.
Trump has to activate National Guard,
Well, with the active
or
duty,
they have to be on orders.
right? Now. I'm not a super expert on myself, okay, but what I know posse comitatus to mean is that U.S. military forces cannot enforce domestic law. Okay, so
Exactly. Yep.
right. So now, if Mexico was invading us, different. But if people are breaking,
Yes.
federal law, like it's a misdemeanor to cross the border for the first time, I think the second or third time becomes a felony. If you cross, get deported, and come back again. But the first time is just a misdemeanor. So we don't want our U.S. troops enforcing domestic law. I mean, the founding fathers, they'd have a heart attack if we tried doing something like that today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So everyone's like, when you're listening to people and reading blogs and stuff, they're like, just send the military down there and shoot at them. You can't do that. They cannot do that.
Right. No.
And that's what I want to make very clear to people. They cannot do that.
Right now,
it's illegal.
They can defend them. Right, they can defend themselves, but just only to the extent like a private citizen could.
Yeah.
Right. So in other words, and they can't really. Generally, a private citizen, like you saw those militia guys, detain all those people. Well, they were actually making arrests. They were making citizens arrests because they knew for sure everybody in their presence was committing at least a misdemeanor. Probably some were committing felonies, and there were misdemeanors in their presence. They actually saw them doing it. Now, it's a little weird if while the military is there, they're not acting as civilians, so they don't. It's not like they can make a misdemeanor arrest and then detain. But that's kind of a gray area because they don't lose their citizenship rights just because they're in the military. But to play it safe, and again for the founding fathers not to be rolling over in their graves, we really don't want them making any arrests. No.
It just makes me very, very nervous because it goes into that territory of creating what is it called? International incidences.
Yeah.
where
Well,
where someone in the military goes down there, doing what they're supposed to do, and then they shoot somebody. That kind of stuff creates wars,
well,
and we don't
it's.
need
I
that.
mean, well, no. I mean, look, if they're down there and there's some guy smuggling drugs and they're assisting Homeland Security, Border Patrol, ICE, and this drug dealer who doesn't want to go to jail pulls a gun and starts shooting, well, they don't just sit there with their gun and watch the Border Patrol agent get pummeled with bullets. You know, they can pull their weapon and probably not even wait to have to return fire. If to protect life, it doesn't mean like somebody has to be shot first. If somebody's about to be shot, I mean, they could probably pull the trigger, but they can't be in the lead. I mean, that's Border Patrol. They're pretty much under their command. In other words, the Pentagon is giving over the troops to Homeland Security, to Border Patrol. So Border Patrol has the lead. They have strategic and tactical command, I would imagine. So, they say, hey, you're coming with us.
It's very sticky. So people get upset, that nothing's being done. But they don't understand the, I guess, implication of what could happen.
Well, no, yeah.
So
I mean,
we're just.
Yeah, I mean, these troops aren't trained to be police. I mean, there's all kinds of classes that Border Patrol agents take on policing, on use of force, and things of that sort. Now, we don't train the military, except for like military police officers, to do that because we don't want them getting distracted by things like that. We don't want them having to think about probable cause because they're in the field, they're in a war. It's like, gee, do I have probable cause to shoot somebody? No. That's a different assignment. Like, no, get back to the war thing. Oh, yeah, that's right. And then you're dead. So, no. But no, they don't have the training. They don't have the experience. I remember, in fact, right after 9/11, there was a bunch of like National Guard troops at McCarran Airport in Las Vegas. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't really happy to see that. I'm kind of a gung-ho guy, but I'm thinking like, these people aren't trained. And at the time, that's before we started using National Guard like in Iraq, and they didn't have really any combat experience. These guys were, once a month, and they didn't have any training, and they're walking through the airports with M16s. And I'm like, oh. And I remember when I saw a bunch of Metro cops take over their assignments, and I looked at the Metro guy who was a sergeant, and I go, I am very happy to see you here. And he goes, we hear that a lot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, hey, it's okay to love the troops, but they're not trained in those kind of procedures. And, they're given a full mag. They're given a full mag, 30-round mag with an M16 inside of an airport. A lot of bad things could happen. So at the border, I'm assuming that these troops are under the command of Border Patrol. I would imagine they are.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what the command is for them. I just know there are a ton of them down here. I see them everywhere. And I know there's a base here. There's a huge base. I don't even know what it's called. It's not Fort Bragg. Whatever the base is in El Paso. It's a huge base.
I know they have an air base down there.
Yeah, there's Army. It's the biggest Army base in the world, I think. And then
Fort Hood. Fort Hood? Fort Hood?
No, it's not. It's not Fort Hood. It's Biggs Army Base or Biggs Air Base. Anyways, I was talking to a gentleman earlier, and he was with FEMA, and he said FEMA is here. The Adbon team has been here, and then the other FEMA people are here, and then the rest of the FEMA people get here next week.
So what's FEMA supposed to be doing? Are they like going to be housing and stuff, like temporary housing for the immigrant families and stuff?
I have no idea, but I do know that they have put a refugee camp just about 10 minutes from where I'm staying. It's a Hondo Pass and Gateway Boulevard.
Amy Skinman, 21, he wrote Fort Bliss. Is it Fort Bliss?
Yes, it is Fort Bliss. Thank you.
Fort Bliss? Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, hopefully FEMA's there, because they have all those temporary housing units, like those little mobile trailers and stuff for hurricanes and stuff. So hopefully they're down there because then we can house more of these people, through that emergency declaration that the president did. we can grab onto FEMA and grab some of their staff and their personnel and their equipment, then we don't have to be releasing 1,000 migrant family members per day. And when word gets out that you're not getting released so fast, maybe that'll slow down the flow of people coming across.
Yeah, I mean, if you just think about it, we have a camp inside our border with refugees. It's looking like Europe.
Well, looking like Syria. I mean, looking like Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Jordan was housing all those Syrian
I mean,
refugees. It's like, what the hell are we doing? It's getting crazy.
Yeah, it's now within our border. It's not on the other side. You know, there's a port of entry not too far from me,
right?
Where there's a bunch of people housed under a bridge or whatever. But now it's crossed over where they've actually built a camp. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that with people because I'm not sure that they know. I'm not sure the American people know.
Well, no, and I'm just glad things are getting done. Look, another story that I know you know a lot about that's not reported is how much danger these people face in crossing the border. I mean, the people who run that border on the Mexican side, those are the drug cartels. You know, all the coyotes and the drug mules, they all work for the cartels. And those are not nice people. You know, they tell you to carry drugs, and you say no. They start killing your family members next to you until you end up carrying those drugs. The rape trees we talked about in the past. Parents having to give their daughters 8, 9, 10, 12 years old morning after pills because they're assuming they're going to get raped. You know, it's funny because this is not funny, but it's ironic. When Trump said, like a third of these women are being raped, and they said no, it's only 30%. Well, I mean, just a few years ago, and this is when President Obama was in the White House.
Only 30%.
Yeah, I know.
It
right.
should be 0%. It's
right.
disgusting.
But when Obama was in the White House, the Huffington Post wrote an article saying that it was 80%. 80% of women from Honduras had been raped trying to get across the U.S. border. Okay, that's a liberal magazine. They published that back when Obama was president. Then suddenly that article went away, and they had researched it. They had done a lot of interviews, and they came up with the number 80%. But now it's like, oh, it's only 30%. Well, it's not only 30%. It's probably a lot higher than that. But nobody talks about that story.
Yeah.
They just want them over here so they can think they can turn them into Democrats when they get across the border. You know, they may get a big surprise. They may get a big surprise in a few years. Most of the people live here for a while, start opening their own businesses and want lower taxes, and they start seeing how the Democrats are so in favor of aborting babies while they're on the operating table after they come out of the birth canal. You know, you got to be real careful. That Latino culture, a lot of Hispanics in border patrol. That Latino culture, that doesn't really blend in well with the Democratic Party right now. It just doesn't. It's not a real clear fit, except for the giving away the free shit stuff.
What people don't understand is a lot of the Hispanic community doesn't get along with other Hispanic communities. Like Puerto Ricans don't like Mexicans. Mexicans don't like South Americans. They're very racist. People don't talk about that. They're very.
That is a cross culture. Now,
they
hold on. Okay, you are making generalities. So just remember that. So it's not all of them, as Jesse Lee Peterson would say.
Oh no.
Not all. You watch Jesse Lee Peterson,
right?
Yeah, not all. But yes, there is that that conflict within the Hispanic community between people from different countries. That is true. It does exist. It's not crazy serious, over the top stuff, but yeah, it does exist.
But I mean, I see it on my husband's side of the family. They don't like, because his mama's Mexican. She does not like Guatemalan. She doesn't like Puerto Rican. She doesn't like South Americans. They're very ethnocentric. Or at least her family is.
And your husband's side of the family is from where? What's their country of origin?
Mexico.
Okay. Well, they have a lot to be proud about. That's a great country. I was saying that earlier. I was like, hey, these people would love to probably stay there if they could have a country like we have, and they could, really simply. all they got to do is, adopt free market economics, some kind of a, where security and law enforcement is at the forefront, where you're not beholden to the drug cartels, where they go in there and actually clean house and take care of these people, and they could have a great country. I mean, they wouldn't have to go anywhere. I've been to all different parts of Mexico, and not just the beach resorts, but I mean, it's a beautiful place. Lots of natural resources, lots of agriculture. I mean, it automatically it has a big tourism industry. So that's a given. It's like Hawaii.
Yeah.
But Hawaii doesn't have what Mexico has. Hawaii doesn't have all the natural resources to kind of marry together with that. Mexico does. So Mexico has the tourism like Hawaii, but Hawaii doesn't have the natural resources and the industry, the oil that Mexico has. So if they got their act together, these people would never want to go anywhere. And I was making a joke earlier. I said, we may end up wanting to cross over. If we become too socialist over here, we're like, hey, a lot of opportunity down there. Because a lot of these people, what do they do when they get over here? A lot of them open up small businesses. Why? Because they can't do it down there. But they come up here and they start their own businesses. They start cleaning businesses, house cleaning businesses. They want to work for themselves. They don't want to work for somebody else.
Yeah.
They want to work for themselves.
Yeah, I actually
Construction
have a
businesses,
lady
landscaping businesses, etc.
Yeah, I have a lady that comes and cleans my house sometimes. She's from Mexico. She has a contract with the Border Patrol to clean.
Yeah.
And she makes a ton of money. She's a great lady. I love her.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what they want. That's
And
what most of them are coming over here
and
for.
a lot of people in Mexico don't have a lot of money, but they're happy with what they have. They don't want to live in America. They're fine with what they have. They love it. They love Mexico. They love their culture.
Then,
Not,
let me ask you a
not
question.
all
then.
those people want to come here.
So the people that are coming across, what is their motivation? Do they lose their job? Maybe they got on the wrong side of a local politician. What's going on with them? Because there's a lot of coming across. I mean, maybe a lot down there love their country. They don't want to go, and we see them in Tijuana when the people from Honduras were there, and they're saying, make Mexico great again, and get out of here. A lot of pride in their own country, a lot of nationalistic feelings. But the people who do come across, what is their motivation? I mean, that's a huge generalization. I mean, I'm sure everybody has different motivations, but what are you seeing as far as like these people for this reason, this reason, this reason, or this reason? Like, what kind of reasons are they coming across?
The ones that I see come into our community are not the best people. The ones that come into our community go back and forth. They have homes in Mexico, and they come and they shop and that kind of stuff. The ones that cross over illegally are not good people. Like Trump said, they're not.
So, these
and
are
when
people
my
who...
husband first...
Go ahead.
When my husband first started his job, he would say, these people are scumbags, and I was like, you have to give him the benefit of the doubt, and he's been doing this for 12 years now. And I have to say that he's not a ground agent. He's Air and Marine, so he flies helicopters. So he was a ground agent for a long time, and then he transitioned. So he's right. You look at the numbers, the people that are incarcerated in Arizona, the numbers are outstanding.
Yeah.
You just can't argue that illegals commit way more crimes, and I've talked about it before. The hit and runs, the drunk driving, the home invasions, the murders, robberies, it's all illegal.
Well, the problem is, like I said earlier, is that, part of going through the legal immigration process it's a question of assimilation. And that doesn't necessarily mean, some people on the left take assimilation to mean, you just want them to lose their culture and become like European culture. No, it means you're coming into another country and you want to learn and respect the laws and the procedures of the country you're asking to come into. And when the
Yes.
first thing you do, the very first act you do when you come into this country is break the law, and you're told,
Yep.
and you rationalize, well, it's okay, and you don't even think it's a crime. Well, it's not a crime. I'm just coming across. Well, it's hard to imagine that these people are going to have a lot of respect for our other laws. If they think it's okay to break one law, then you can then it's okay maybe to get a fake Social Security number, knowing that's somebody else's Social Security number that you're using. You can't just use
Yep.
a completely made up Social Security number, because when that employer sends it on up, if it doesn't match, they're coming back and saying, hey, that person doesn't exist. So it has to be somebody that exists, and so that's somebody else's Social Security number. And then at some point in time, it's going to catch up to
that's
them.
another huge thing is credit card theft and, Social Security theft and all that kind of stuff. And I talked to you before about the, like, cultural differences, or, how people raise their children. Here you're not allowed to spank. In Mexico, you're allowed to spank. But they also let their kids run around and, in the stores and tear shit up. And I don't know. It's a difficult
you kind of wonder,
where
when they're in Mexico, do they let their kids run around and tear shit up? I mean, I would say probably not.
Yeah.
Because again, that goes back to, you're coming to a country illegally. You don't have any respect for our laws or customs or procedures, and then maybe you feel like, well, who gives a shit, But maybe in Mexico they don't let their kids run around and cause mischief and mayhem. But here, like, well, whatever.
Yeah. So
it's not my country anyway.
Yeah.
What do I give a shit?
I don't know if I have told you before that I lived in Japan for a little bit. So when we went to Japan, I tried to learn some of the language. It's kind of a difficult language to learn, but
very hard.
You do your best.
Yeah.
You do your best. So you learn the niceties and that kind of stuff, and you try to, like, blend in with the culture as best you can. But I do not see that where I live. And part of the thing is, they always say, you're in our country, you stole our land, the Aslan kind of thing. And it's kind of hard.
Well, as far as, what you mean, the Japanese say that to you, or the Mexicans say that to us when they come across, like we stole their land?
Oh, Mexicans, well, yeah, and indigenous.
You're right. I mean, you kind of have to understand, though, all the maps of the world, all the lines of different countries were most likely drawn through some form of conquest or another. I mean,
right.
Germany looks different than it did, in 1939, okay? And it looks different than it did in 1918. And so does France, okay? So, I mean, all these countries look different because of conquest, going back, how far back you want to go. You can go really far back.
Yeah, and Mexico only had this land for less than 50 years, and they're still upset about it. And it was
right. But I mean,
America paid Mexico for the land that was given to them. So
they retired all their debt. That was one thing they did immediately. They retired all their debt, and they gave them some cash.
Yeah.
And we were actually in Mexico City. I mean, our army was in Mexico City. If we were going to occupy it, we could have just stayed and said, okay, you're now part of the United States. Get over it. And they probably would be a lot better off right now, because just think, if Mexico was part of the United States and the same free market economy and economics and everything, Dinesh D'Souza brought this up in his movie. He said, gee, maybe if we had stayed and not left, Mexico would look like the United States right now. It would be, people would be happy. They wouldn't be walking around with pots on their head and living in poverty. They would be doing really well. Yeah. You can remember, he showed that scene of that woman walking with a pot on her head, walking down the street in Mexico, and he goes,
yeah.
You can say what you want about our country, but people have cars here. I mean, I don't care how poor you are, you have a car. I mean, you're not. Very few people are on foot.
All you have to do is look at the Indian reservations, how impoverished they are. That's what socialism looks like.
Yeah, yeah, and unfortunately, that's what you have in Mexico. You have a form of socialism, And then you have the corruption that immediately follows socialism, because you have to have centralized planning, a few people at the top, and the less people you have at the top, unlike our country where you have 435 Congress people, 100 senators, a president, a cabinet, a separate judiciary, completely independent, by the way, and then you have state legislators and governors and et cetera, where the power is kind of spread out, so it's much harder to for just a few people, if they're corrupt, to like ruin the whole thing. Whereas like in Mexico and other socialist countries, if you got like 5 people at the top, or 2 or 1, well, and then some guy says, "Hey, I want that contract. I want to build this. It's not as good as my competitor, but here's $10 million." And then suddenly, yeah, your product looks pretty good. Let's go that way. Let's do that. And then suddenly the guy who's making these goods, or running like in Venezuela, the guy running the oil wells is, incompetent. The guy running the electrical grid, incompetent, and then the electricity goes out. And it's like, well, yeah, but he threw like $10 million at Maduro or Chavez before him, and he got the deal. And it wasn't the best guy; it was the shittiest guy who just happened to have a few bucks in his pocket. So yes, that's the problem with socialism.
And I think people forget that Indian reservations are sovereign lands.
Right.
So even though they're in the United States, they have their tribal leaders, and they're super corrupt, and they're run by like cartel families.
Oh,
it doesn't matter where in the United States they are. It's the same families that run the reservations, and I mean, they get their casino money, and it is socialism.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of bad
they
blood
have
on the
been
reservation.
Impoverished for years.
Yeah, no, I knew some people who were on a reservation here in Nevada, and pretty much they got in bad with like the people who run stuff, and they were pretty much run off. I mean, literally run off, and pretty much lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get on the wrong side of the few who run things over there, you don't kiss their ass, eat a lot of shit every day, then yeah, you're a persona non grata, and things aren't going to go so good for you. So yeah, that you're right though. When you have like, again, when power is centered in just a very few at the top, and human nature being human nature, which hasn't ever changed. I mean, God, Plato was writing about this. He was I'm not sure if he plagiarized, but he was using somebody else's quote, like, okay, who guards the guardians? Basically, we're going to put people in charge at the top to make sure we're doing the right stuff, but who's going to make sure they're doing the right stuff? And the only answer Plato had was that, well, there'll be men of noble nature and uncorruptible. Well, that's never, that was, he wrote that, 3,000 years ago. Maybe, yeah, somewhere around there. But, that's never been proven to be true. I don't care, how pure somebody is at one point in their lives, that money starts flowing in, and, bad things happen as a result.
It feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good. You get nice stuff and a big house and power. Right. And
same thing happened in the Soviet Union.
Stefan Molyneux did a great podcast on that.
Yeah, I like Stefan. I try to catch him as often as I can. I like his shorter videos because I don't have as much time to watch him as I would like. But yeah, I mean, I'll watch like when he does like a 20-minute video or something like that, or a 15-minute video. Yeah, I can catch those because he'll take it from one of his podcasts and he'll just make it like do a 15-minute video or something. But I like the way he speaks is in that he brings it down to a level that you can understand what the hell he's talking about. Because the guy's really smart.
Yeah, I was going to say he dumbs it down so I can understand it.
Yeah, well, I don't want to say dumb it down because I'm one of those people he's dumbing it down for. So I was kind of like being a little egotistical there, saying, oh, he just kind of explains it really well. But he does dumb it down, right? Because, he's like genius level, right? So he's way up here, and we're like, down here. But the way he explains it, it makes sense, and he doesn't put a bunch of graphs up that you can't figure out. He puts graphs and charts up, but he makes them easy to understand. But yeah, no, I love catching the show. It's just like I can't catch the long ones, but like the when he breaks out parts of them, the little like 15, 20-minute videos, yeah, I catch those for sure. definitely.
Yeah, I actually like to fall asleep to those.
Yeah, that's I fell asleep one night with a headset on, and then it got loud, and I woke up in the middle of the night. I'm like, what the hell was that? What's that? It's like, oh, geez.
All right, Carl. Well, thanks for letting me speak my piece, but
Oh yeah,
I think that people should know that things on the border are not going well, and we're on the verge of something that's not good.
yeah,
I can feel it. I've had this sick pit in my stomach for a couple months just watching all this chaos coming over here. It's not good.
yeah,
The people that are coming, they're uneducated. They don't speak the language. Some of them, I mean, there's 40 different countries coming in. So, the
yeah.
Border Patrol doesn't have all those translators. Most of them only speak Spanish. And my husband is Hispanic, and he doesn't even speak that much Spanish.
Wow.
So I don't know what we're gonna do. It's kind of critical mass, you know.
Well, Trump's meeting with.
I think we need to pray a lot, and I don't know, how many Christians are out there listening, but we need to pray.
That's definitely a good idea, but we're fortunate with the person we have in the White House. I mean, again, we are limited
Yeah,
by our Constitution, but that's a good thing.
yeah,
We lasted for 230 years because of that, and there's no reason to doubt that we're not going to last for another 230. And I'm not just being pie in the sky optimistic. It's just that with the systems of check, and somebody wrote it in here, a system of checks and balances that we have in place. Oh, F, you wrote that, yeah. Um, you know, things can get done. I mean, Schumer and Pelosi are meeting with Trump tomorrow. They got a whole bunch of demands they want to make of him. Well, Trump's ready for that meeting. So, and
oh gosh, I can't wait for the memes. It's gonna be great.
oh yeah, it'll be over the top. But I mean, hopefully they can. They want to talk about infrastructure tomorrow. That's a big thing they want to get done. It's always been a bipartisan issue, infrastructure. Just a question of how it's going to get paid and stuff. But maybe he can start talking about the border. I don't know. But he declared that national emergency, and you really haven't heard a lot about it from Congress since. They've been busy with a bunch of other nonsense. So they kind of realized that. Go ahead.
Actually, one other thing I wanted to say is my husband's friend has lived here for 30 years, and I asked him, how do people here feel about the wall? And he said, most people don't even care. It's been here. So it's just a matter of life to them. So the citizens that live here, it's maybe the millennials or the people that have moved in, or the people maybe that are involved in criminal activities. I'm not sure. I didn't get into it with him that much, but I just wanted to ask him, how they felt about it. And he's like, they don't care.
Oh wow. Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of a DC kind of thing. I mean, if it gets done, I want it done. It should be done. It's going to help. But yeah, I think you're right. I don't think most people in the country are like, oh no, the wall. I think it's just a lot of ginning up by the mainstream media and by Democratic, elitist politicians. But
Yeah, and then something else that happened here. There was a nice neighborhood. They didn't want a wall. It's like right on the border, so they had built the wall up, and that neighborhood had like HOAs and stuff, and they said they didn't want it, so they built it up to that neighborhood, and then on the other side of it, and the illegals were crossing over into their property, like crapping in their pools and doing all that kind of stuff. So then they wanted it, and they had to spend a whole bunch of money to get the wall built.
Oh, so in other words,
I laughed so hard.
So in other words, they kind of built the wall like right up to their say the eastern part of the property, built it around the northern part and down to the western part, and that whole thing was open right there. And then all these illegals were coming through this nice neighborhood, taking baths in the people's pools.
Yeah.
Going to the bathroom in their pools.
Exactly.
And maybe stealing their garden vegetables and stuff, and then tell, oh, we want the wall,
Yeah.
we want the wall. It's like, well, okay, give us some
Yeah.
money and we'll get it done. That's funny.
Yeah, so I think it lasted about a year or something. I'll if I can find the article, I'll send it to you. But I thought it was hysterical
Yeah.
because they were so elite, and
Right.
they didn't want to make their neighborhood ugly, but it made their neighborhood ugly
Right.
in the
Well,
long run. So
they were like, oh, we love illegals, and then we love them, but
yeah,
just not in literally our backyard. Right.
right, right.
Good deal. All right, young lady. Thanks for calling in, and really appreciate it. And hey, I'll see you in the chat. And always call in. Always like hearing from you.
All right, thanks, Carl. I appreciate it.
All right, you take care. Bye bye.
All right, good night.
And that was the great Amy D. She's always with the great phone call. Knows a lot of information about immigration and the border and stuff. Her husband's a Border Patrol agent. And she always can provide us a little bit of insight from literally on the ground. And I like that story, too, with the people like, oh, we love illegals. We don't want a wall. We don't want to. We want to build bridges, not walls. Let them come in. And then a year later, they're like, oh, shit, build a damn wall. Keep these people out. They're destroying our property. They're taking baths in our pools. They're peeing in our pool, taking a shit in our pool, going through our vegetable garden. You open the blinds in the morning and some dude standing out there staring at you. Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, good. I'm glad that's what you call a learning experience. Or like when the Democrats say, we need to have a conversation. Well, they just had it. Okay? They had to have a conversation with a whole bunch of illegals in their backyard. Literally. So, well, I mean, I agree, Jervis. Dose of reality. That's it. It's like when Trump said, okay, well, I tell you what, we got all these migrant families we got to release, and it's not fair to the border cities like in New Mexico and Arizona and Texas to have to house all these people and get released in their cities and put a big strain on their city services and stuff and their law enforcement and their hospitals and their medical care and their food sources. So I tell you what, sanctuary cities, you want them, you got them. And of course they said, oh, you're being petulant, that's petty, and that's not right. Well, I mean, he was doing you a favor. You said you love illegals. You said we should have open borders. You said they should just come here. You say they make this country better. And, well, just think, if you had them all in your city, how much better could your city be? Just think about it. I mean, you can make San Francisco so much better by having, I don't know, 365,000 illegal migrant families a year move in. And then you can take care of them. You can house them. You can feed them. You can clothe them. You can get them jobs. And you can let them commit crimes. Don't call ICE, In fact, after you do that, ICE should say, you know what, don't even call us. You deal with them. We're not supporting them. They can stay right where they are. It would be funny, like the mayor will be breaking the law himself, this California law. He'll be calling ICE, hey, man, we got 200 in the jail, and ICE should just laugh, Yeah, well, they're yours now. You deal with them. You figure it out. You put them through your criminal court system. You overwhelm your court system, your public defender's office, your district attorney's office, your judges, the staff, your jails, your sheriff's office. You get to be overwhelmed. You want it so much? Take it. And suddenly the hypocrisy was all over the place. Suddenly, oh, well, president's being petulant. Well, you really didn't answer the question, though. If you're in favor of illegal aliens, why should just New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas bear the brunt of it? When they have to release these people, they're releasing them in the states they caught them in. Right into the streets. I mean, literally, right onto the street, right at the bus station. Here you go. So why should Las Cruces and Phoenix and El Paso have to bear the brunt of all this? Socialism is always about what? Spreading the wealth. Remember Obama with Joe the plumber? Oh, we got to spread the wealth. Spread the wealth. It'll be a really good idea, and everybody will be better off for it. So hey, we should spread the pain. Also, we have these illegals, and they're good people. They're better than us. They're better than us, right? They commit less crimes than we do, and they're great people. So we should spread the wealth of them to other parts of the country, like San Francisco. Or I live in D.C. in a mansion with, 20-foot wall, and they can live in my mansion. Oh, what? What? My mansion? No, no, not my mansion. Send them to Joe Biden's house. Yeah, I never liked him anyway. Yeah, Joe Biden. Yeah, he asked me to endorse him. But I told him, Joe, I don't like you, man. You're an old white man. I'm not going to endorse you. You're stupid. You're crazy. And you're old. And I think you're senile. And you like grabbing women. I don't know. I'm not endorsing you, Joe. You have to get somebody else. Yes. There you go. All right. Skinman, good night for sure. Hold on. Hold on. Obama's leaving the room right now. Okay, I'm back. Okay, hold on. There you go. But anyway. So, yeah. But I mean, it was hilarious because it's like, I didn't understand the logic of opposing that idea. It didn't make any sense to oppose it. Because, again, what are you telling New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas? If this is a national issue, illegal immigration is by definition a national issue, then why should those border states have to bear the brunt of all this? Why not spread it out? And if you have to spread it out somewhere, well, spread it out to the people who have passed laws saying that their cops cannot contact ICE to have these people deported, and you pass laws that protect them, and a lot of times they don't get charged, or if they get charged, they don't get prosecuted, and they're allowed to just wander through the city, do whatever they want. You enable all this bad behavior. So if you're saying that's all good, then why is it bad to dump 365,000 migrant families a year in your city? I mean, after 10 years, you can have 3 million plus with the birth rate, you can have 10 million. 10 million more happy, wonderful people for you, to take care of. Or actually, you won't have to, right? Yeah, because they're going to do such great things for your city. So they'll be taking care of you. Or you allow them to vote. Hell, they'll be running the city. You said they should be allowed to vote. Hell, they can vote for mayor. They can vote for, eventually they can vote for governor. And then it won't be Gavin Newsom. It'll be, Jorge Rodriguez, governor of the state. And he'll be an illegal. But that'll be just fine because you'll be happy with it. And then they'll be telling you what to do. And guess what they'll do? They'll let more in. And then they'll take Trump up on his offer. They say, yeah, or whoever's president at the time. Hey, yeah, send all the illegals over here. So there you go. Anyway. So, Joe's not invited to the barbecue. Yeah, that was a really funny story. I covered it last week, and Joe Biden saying, "Well, I told the president, not to endorse me." Bullshit. You're gonna tell the most popular Democrat, in the Democratic Party, in my lifetime, "Oh, I don't want your endorsement." Yeah, okay, so no problem. Yeah, like you're going for that job and you don't want a good referral from your former boss. No. I want to earn this job on my own. Funny because he was saying in the beginning, well, I'm not going to run unless I know I can win. And his people were sending out feelers to Obama, and I'm sure Biden asked directly, and Obama told him directly, no, it's not going to happen. So then but it was funny when you heard his answer, because his first answer was, well, I told the president not to endorse, but then he goes on to say, well, the president says that he wants the candidate to turn it on their own. So why would the president wouldn't have responded that way? Obama wouldn't have responded that way. If he says, hey, don't endorse me, Obama would have said, well, okay. But no, instead he says, Obama said he wants the candidates to earn it on their own and stuff. So the only way you get a response to that is if you say, hey, can you endorse me? And then he says, no, I want each of the candidates to earn it on their own. But if you walk up to the guy and before he says anything, you say, hey, Obama, don't endorse me. Obama's like, oh, okay. And that's the end, end of story. Stop right there. So obviously that whole story is bullshit. I was watching Brian Williams. I know. But anyway, and even he said to the three people sitting in front of him, he goes, "That's interesting." And anytime you hear somebody say the word interesting, it means that's full of shit. Because Williams and those guys, they've been in D.C. for decades, and they know the drill. They know what that meant, and they know that Biden's been courting that endorsement from Obama for a long time, and Obama's been letting him know in no uncertain terms, no, we're not endorsing you. I'm not endorsing you. Have a nice day. And he really can't. He asked Obama to endorse him on Wednesday. Oh, really? Did he? But and then Thursday he told him no. Wednesday he said no. But yeah, I mean, there's no way Obama's going to endorse him. Like I said the other day, Obama did a lot to change literally the face of the Democratic Party, and no way he's going to assist in undoing the work he did. And obviously I disagree with the work he did on that end, but, he doesn't. That's his opinion. He can have it. That's what he wanted to do. But if you think he's just going to turn around and then say, well, 8 years I tried to do this, and this. I tried to change the face of the Democratic Party to get away from old white men, and then suddenly I'm just going to turn around and willy-nilly just undo all the work I did for 8 years and endorse this guy. No, of course not. Why would he do that? That's his agenda. That's fine. That's his agenda. He's allowed to have his agenda. I disagree with it, but to think he's going to undo that and endorse Joe Biden, and of course, let's be honest about something else. Joe Biden is not going to be the best candidate. I mean, he's not a good candidate. I mean, he got a lot of baggage, and all those creepy Joe, Uncle Joe Biden videos. Trust me, those weren't put out by the Republicans. I mean, I have a sneaking suspicion which one of those candidates did that, and I'm looking at Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris started getting that creepy Joe stuff out just recently. I mean, it's always been on YouTube, I know. I've watched it before, and it is creepy to watch. I mean, it's like, you just want to turn it off. But, her camp was the camp that started putting that out there. I mean, the Justice Democrats, that's Ocasio-Cortez's group, she works for them. I mean, they're the ones who drafted her into running and stuff. And that's Cenk Uygur and the Young Turks and stuff. They've already come out publicly and said, we don't want Biden. That they no holds barred. They were straight up, yep, we don't want him. And so that's the left wing of the party. So, is that enough to, defeat Joe Biden in the primaries? I don't know. It might be. It all depends who comes out to the polls. That's the big thing. The Justice. One thing you say about the Justice Democrats, the far left of the Democratic Party, they're energized and they're motivated and they do the work. And they came out in 2018 and they worked. They worked. They believe in socialism, but boy, they sure as shit worked on that in that race. They got the votes out. They went door to door. They knocked on doors. They did the emails. They made the phone calls. They got the transportation to get people, whether legal or illegal, to the polls, and they got it done. So in the Democratic primary, those are the people who are going to be the forefront, of who's voting. That's who's coming. I mean, they're definitely coming out to the polls, period. So they're going out. So now the question is, can Biden get the center left of the Democratic Party as enthusiastic to come out to the polls, to go out to Iowa? I mean, well, actually, that's probably not hard because in Iowa, everybody goes out to the caucuses. I mean, the caucus. They all know. It's a national story. I mean, everybody goes out. I mean, the turnout's always phenomenal, which is really cool. That's the way it should be in every state. Every state should have the same kind of turnout as Iowa does. So he's probably not going to have a hard time getting his people out in Iowa. And it doesn't matter how the weather's always crappy. It's, in February of Iowa. If you've ever been up in Iowa, and I've been in the wintertime, it's cold. They come out anyway. And, they live there. It's not like, ooh, it's cold, we got to stay home. No, they live there. They're cold all the time. So Iowa, he probably should have a hard time getting his people out. New Hampshire, then you go into the South, and boy, in Democratic Party, the black vote is huge. The black woman vote is a big voting block in the South in Democratic Party primaries. Hillary Clinton won big time against Bernie Sanders with black women, and obviously she took the South. Bernie Sanders was playing catch up all the rest of the way after that. So I don't know if Biden can break through on that. I really don't. Kamala Harris, I watch a lot of Black YouTube. O'Shea Duke Jackson's site. That was my first big break. I had 12 subs, and then he invited me on the show. I was like the first white guy I was the first white guy he ever had on the show. And I watch a lot of his channels. He made me a moderator over there. It was really cool. And there's a lot of what's the word I'm trying to think of? There's a lot of argument about Kamala Harris, as far as she's half Indian, half black, but there isn't even an argument about how half black she is, because her father's from Jamaica, and he appears to be mixed race also. And there's a big discussion in the black community right now regarding mixed race and percentages and who's black, who isn't. It's actually going on right now. It's in the forefront, a lot of political discussions. But anyway, so it'd be kind of interesting to see if Kamala can still keep the black female vote even with that. I personally think she will. But anyway, Effie. Effie, how you doing?
Hey, Mr. Paul.
How you doing?
I don't know how much. I'm sorry?
I said, how are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good. I had a weird, unexpected nap. I was working, and I'm on the computer, and the next thing I know, I'm like falling out backwards like an old lady. I don't know how that happened. I guess it's middle age.
Yeah, no, that happens to me every once in a while. Also, I'll be watching like a YouTube. Well, funny, I was just talking about O'Shea, and like on Sunday he does like a 3-hour show, and I'll be watching that, and I'll be sitting there, and I'll literally fall asleep. I don't fall backwards, but I fall the way like on this couch, as a matter of fact. So I kind of fall asleep with my face leaning forward. With no microphone in my face, thank God. But I just kind of fall asleep leaning forward, and I just sit here.
That could be bad, especially if it gets in your eye.
Yeah, no, you don't want the mic in your eye. Yeah, the mic's not in front of me when I'm watching YouTube. Only when I'm broadcasting. But yeah, that does happen. I'll just fall asleep. Like I feel like I'm an old man. Like Homer Simpson's dad. He would just be talking, and then all of a sudden, like he just fall asleep and start snoring. I feel like that's me now.
Right. Yeah, I used to be captain of the guard until they took a mic to the eye. Oh, never mind. That's an old gamer reference. Just bad. I have a theory.
Yes.
Doink. Service. I have a theory. Okay. Tell me what you think about what you're talking about, as far as who they're going to run and who's going to win and all that. I'm a little more concerned about 2024 than I am about 2020. Here's my theory.
Go ahead.
I think President Trump is going to win no matter who they run against him. It's not saying it's easy. I'm not saying we can be complacent. Certainly not. But I'm saying he's going to win, no matter what. 60-40 is what most people are saying. I think it's much better than that. So the question being, what happens after Trump? A lot of people are talking about that. And they're mostly talking about the Republican side. Well, I mean, based on what we're talking about, this is something I've been thinking about this week. I'm thinking, what about the Democrat side? What would be our better position for 2024? And I think our better position would be if one of the Justice Democrats made it all the way to win their nomination. Mm-hmm. Because if Biden wins, and the Justice Democrats have already said this, if Biden wins and then loses against Trump, they feel like that will be vindication that their ideas, the extreme left, will be vindicated as the right way to go, and they only lost this against this race against Trump, which they know they're going to anyway. Let's face it, but that they only lost this because they didn't go hard enough left, and then that might tip the balance in the Democrat Civil War to the Justice Democrat version. So it would be better that a Justice Democrat wins, gets defeated, and then the Democrat Civil War goes moderate. I think in the long run it's better for the country if it happens that way. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's better for the country to have a good two-party system where you have sane people on both sides. Right. So, part of me is like...
I'm pro-sanity, too, just to say.
Yeah, part of me is like, okay, I'd like to have a real Democratic Party again, right? Where you kind of they say
Exactly.
intelligent things and they represent middle America. That'd be kind of nice. Then you can kind of look at them and if one of them gets elected, you don't go, oh my God, geez, the end of the world. But at the same point in time,
They'll be reasonable.
yeah, at the same point in time though, I have a little bit different outlook on it. Okay, say Biden gets the
Hmm.
nomination, loses, and the Justice Democrats say, "See, you should have listened to us. We're taking over the party." Well, they may take over the
Right.
party. They may take over the party, but how many Americans are going to follow them off that cliff? I think they still run into the same problem. If Biden gets a nomination, there was a reason for it. Namely, the majority of the party said, "No, we reject what you guys are doing." So if they take over the Democratic Party, after 2020, after say they lose with Joe Biden, and they go far left, more left than they are now. Well, I mean, the American people are rejecting them, right now. And trust me, in 2024, whoever they put up, it won't even be the Democratic Party. I don't know what it'll be. It'll be something else. They might even change the name. Who
Hmm.
knows? So they'll lose. They'll still lose the American people. I mean, young people, they're kind of wacky right now. I mean, I was young. We
Hmm.
weren't wacky. We used to like debate, and we used to encourage it, and we'd have great debates in classrooms and differing opinions and stuff. We didn't try to shut anybody down or shut anybody up. We were kind of cool. You know. But now they're kind of crazy. But I'm not sure if as they get older they stay crazy. They might. They might stay crazy. I mean, I know some liberals in their 30s who went through, the education system, 10 years ago, and they're pushing for like Buttigieg. They think he's like the be all end all, and I'm like, you
Sure.
know, like have you? And these are
And I
intelligent
think
people
I
who
think
I know
Buttigieg
have
shouldn't
listened to
run
him.
for president.
Excuse me.
Yeah. I was saying I think Buttigieg shouldn't run for president. I mean, he speaks 6 languages. He should run for first lady. He's obviously vying for Melania's position, but too bad for him. He's not President Trump's type. But I digress.
You digress.
So, so, so you see it ultimately. You see it an actual collapse of the Democrat Party going the way of the Whigs as being a possibility should the Justice Democrats win this year's nomination and then lose.
Well, either
Is
way,
that, is that, is that the scenario?
either if they get one of their candidates nominated and they lose, I mean, they could just leave the Democratic Party and say they'll blame it on the Democrats, of course, and say, oh, you didn't back us after we got the nomination, kind of like how the conservatives,
Mm-hmm.
remember the conservatives did the same thing to Bob Dole in '96. They left him twisting in the wind, and I hate to say it, but I was one of those guys. Okay, I was out there leaving him twisting also. I wanted Pat Buchanan to get the nomination, and a lot of us did. So, we kind of did the same thing to Bob Dole that I could see the Justice Democrats doing to a Joe Biden nominee, not going out to vote, and that would seriously hurt Joe Biden's chances because that's not so much as much money they would lose out on. He would lose out on, but he would lose out on votes for sure. But even if, like, say they nominate Biden, Biden loses, and they say, "Oh, see, we told you so," and now we're taking over the party and nobody getting our way. Well, if they do take over the party, they lose anyway because the American people aren't necessarily in a position to go following them. They're not really chasing after
Mm-hmm.
them right now. I can't see them chasing after them 4 years
Right.
from now either, or 6 years from now.
So along those lines, do you see the moderate Democrats being willing to hold their nose and vote Republican if that happens in 2024? Or do you
Um,
see them just not voting? Or?
no, I don't see them necessarily switching parties. I think most people stay home when they're upset.
Yeah,
They can't bring themselves to vote for the other
right.
guy, but they will stay home. And staying
Or they'll
home,
vote for Kermit the Frog or Pepe the
right?
Frog or whatever.
Or they literally just won't go to the polls. I mean, in '96, a lot of us stayed home. Okay, I mean,
Sure.
we weren't going to vote for Bill Clinton. I mean, there's no way. I'm sorry, that's a bridge too far. But we weren't going to come out. I mean, because
Okay. And then on the
Buchanan got
other
railroaded.
hand,
I mean,
are the extremist Justice Democrats, should that happen, do you think they'll be legitimately pushing for third party at that point? Do you think they're that extreme that they'll do that?
if okay, if Biden gets a nomination, they obviously trying to push for a third party in the middle of an election, they'd lose all their money. Okay, the Steyers of the world would pull their money out of them and say, hey, look, you're going to cost us the election. They all still remember who's that idiot in 2000, the consumer activist. Can't remember his name now. The guy who ran as an independent and took all those votes away from Gore in Florida. What was his name?
Oh, gosh, it's bugging me. Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and Gore actually met with
Doctor
him
something?
No, it's I don't know. If you Google 2000 election independent, it'll probably punch up. So.
Okay.
Can't remember his name, but anyway, Gore actually met with him personally and asked and begged him to get out of the race, and he wouldn't do it. And a lot of big, powerful Democrats went and met with him and said, "Look, get out of the race." And Gore promised him all kinds of stuff. I'm sure he promised him even a cabinet appointment. Just get out of the race. And he took. Remember, Bush only won by 562 votes, and that guy got 70,000 votes in Florida. And the odds that those 70,000, any of those 70,000 would have voted for, George W. Bush is absurd. So, they would have voted for Al Gore. And now maybe not all of them would have come out to vote for Al Gore, but say only half, 35,000. Well, Al Gore would have taken Florida going away. Wouldn't have even been close. There would have been no recount. There would have been no nothing. He would have taken Florida. He would be president. So the Democrats still remember that. At least the older ones do. And the older ones are the ones with the money. So if the Justice Democrats try to split the party in the middle of an election year.
Ralph Nader.
Yeah, Ralph Nader.
Wasn't he a doctor, though? Am I mistaken?
He might have been. He might have been, now that you mention it. Yeah. And he might be a doctor, like a PhD or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
okay.
So if they tried in the middle of the year, they would find themselves with no money. They would find themselves with no money.
Okay. Well,
and they wouldn't be able to do anything. Money.
Now, except for their money, Carl, you're talking the Justice Democrats, right? Starting a new party. Their backers are not the corporate Dems backers. So their backers are the international, the Soros people.
Right. I'm just saying. I'm saying if they did it like in the actual year of 2020, if they did it or 20, right, early enough where they could get on the ballot in all these different states. I don't know. I can't remember what the deadline is, but it comes up pretty quick. But if they did it like right before the deadline, they got their own candidate on the ballot. I mean, remember when the guy from Starbucks is, he's been talking about running, and everybody's been yelling at him. Don't do it. Because they'll say, look, you're going to take votes away from the Democratic nominee, period. And it'll be Ralph Nader all over again, 2000. So now I'm not saying after 2020, if they did it, they wouldn't have any money. No, they'd probably get a lot of money to do something just like that.
That's what I was picturing. Is the 2024? So that's what I was. The whole premise that I was thinking about is I'm concerned not so much about 2020 because I believe President Trump will win no matter what. Providing acts of God, et cetera, and just saying. But 2024 is, how is that going to shake out? And, I would rather the moderates win the Democrat Civil War. So what dominoes have to fall to make that happen? And I just postulate that having one of these, extremist Justice Democrats win, and then lose the election would be better in the long run for the nation, in the sense that at least the Democrats would then, the moderates would regain control, I believe. So, you think that's possibly not what will happen? It'll end up in an even larger schism.
Yeah, I think it would have to go that way. You would definitely end up in a larger schism. Mm-hmm. Oh wait, hold on a second. Let me just. Mm-hmm. I have to adjust some technical issue right here, real quick. There we go. Yay! I'm sorry, I was covering up Donald Trump's face. I didn't want to do that, so I had to move myself over there.
No, we don't.
Yeah. Well,
okay. I mean, I get it. I was just following their logic as far as the Justice Democrats saying, hey, if you put up Joe Biden and he's going to lose and it's going to be a case of we told you so, and it needed to be one of our guys and slash girls slash G's, whatever. And that was so I was wondering if it would be the same in reverse.
Yeah,
As far
remember
as the
that
argument.
because the corporate Democrats aren't going to go follow the left. I mean, either like
Sure.
say the far left takes over the Democratic Party, then I can see another party forming outside of that, and then all the corporate Dems and probably the moderates would follow them into another party, or if the far left couldn't take over the Democratic Party, couldn't get leadership positions at the DNC, etc., then they would form their own party. But either way,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be a split. There's a lot of passion on that far left right now. A lot of passion, a lot of motivation. That's what I was saying.
So the question then.
Yeah, I mean, you can say what you want about them, but boy, they sure came out in 2018 like gangbusters. Steve Bannon was talking about that when he was in Europe, and he says, "Let me tell you, they did the work. You know, they knocked on the doors.
Yeah.
You have to admire that. You have to respect what they accomplished in 2018. I mean, you had a good economy, you had peace breaking out around the world, and they still got their people out, and we didn't do a good job on our end getting our people out. And I'm still pissed off about that our people didn't come
Well, they
out.
won't be the young and hip. They won't have the young and hip kind of shine that they had the last two elections. At that point, they'll be in middle age too. So that'll change. That'll change the demographic. And
That could. Yeah.
They don't. Yeah, I mean, the natural ageism of our our Western society will render them uncool, whether they want to be or not. So they won't be able to direct culture as much as they do now, which is where most of their vote comes from.
Right.
So,
no. Well, you got another group of youth coming, and I've heard stories on both sides saying that this younger generation is more conservative, and then I've heard that no, they're actually more left. So I don't know how that shakes out. I mean, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that. It's one of those things.
I think they're
where,
more informed anyway. They're more informed and more engaged because they're on online engaging from diapers rather than being spoon fed.
Yeah, but
by
somebody just did a
authoritarian.
study. Somebody just did a study the other day, and it was something like, I can't remember what it was. They were talking about the number of tweets and retweets that go out and the political persuasion of majority of tweets that are online. It was overwhelmingly far left. So they may be informed,
Sure.
they may be engaged, but it's like, watching MSNBC 4 hours a night. You're getting the wrong information.
Sure.
Like I was watching,
yeah.
I don't know if you watched Tim Pool or let's see, let me look at my history.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on this morning. Well, I think he was on yesterday, and I didn't catch it, but I watched it this morning. And he did that video because Rachel Maddow called out this guy from RT Television, and the guy from RT because Rachel was upset that YouTube, that the RT Television site regarding the Mueller report showed up as on her recommended feed, and she goes, "Oh, that should be on the recommended feed." And so the people from RT who wrote the article on the Mueller report said, "Oh, really? Well, you're on the recommended feed either, and let's look what you did." And they listed out like 7. Did you see that? They listed out like 7 or 8
It was
different
awesome.
things. Yeah,
I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, that was great. And he says, she's crazy. She's insane. I'm like, the Russians are going to turn off the electricity. You're in the winter. You're in Fargo, and it's 50 below, and you're going to die. And so they just called her out.
Yeah.
So.
And also, Carl, there are a lot of young people who are on alternative sites. The reason for that is, remember, when you're a teenager, particularly a teenage male, part of the growing process is the need for rebellion, some form or fashion. It doesn't have to be, extravagant rebellion, but some need to break out and be your own person. And it's part of the becoming a man process, especially for the young males.
Yeah.
And they seek out. They're on platforms that you're not on because I'm sorry, but we're old people.
Yeah, we are.
So,
no, I heard there's some other new weird platform out there that they said if you're over like 25, you won't understand it or something. Yeah.
Sure, many.
Well,
so,
the problem though is a lot of like the boys who are becoming men, they're not really becoming men. They've been so beat down with this toxic masculinity crap and being told that any thought they have as a man is wrong. Some woman was writing this article. I forgot, like New Yorker or something, and she went out with a younger guy, and he said, "Oh, Ben Shapiro covered this one. I'm not sure if you saw it, but." And it was like, oh, and he kept asking me for permission for every move. Like, they eventually had sex, right? At some point. But, like, every move he made, he asked for permission first. Can I put my hand on your leg? Can I touch your shoulder? Can I kiss you? Can I kiss your neck? Can I grab this? Can I grab that? And Ben Shapiro was joking and says, if I had done that, I wouldn't have any children right now. So
Yeah, I heard
unfortunately, the boys that are becoming men, they're so beat up. They're told over and over again. I mean, like, the Gillette commercial. I mean, they're just told, being a man is bad, and, being tough is wrong. And
But there's a backlash. There's a backlash against that because what's happened is their profits are decreasing in the area of Gillette, and Procter & Gamble's doing just fine, but Gillette is losing some money on that. But that's this, and think about organizations that are contrary to that narrative, Proud Boys, etc. They're out there doing their thing. The fact is, they're always going to be right at this point, hopefully, because it's the only thing that'll save society. Real men being real men and teaching boys how to be men. So they may not necessarily be on Twitter and Facebook and all that, but that doesn't mean they're not out there teaching their young men how to be men.
Well,
so
I hope you're right.
I am encouraged because I see those life signs, and conservatives always, to call it conservatism, I guess, just realists, have always been, in every form in society traditionally, we've been sort of quiet, hidden away, but there, the silent majority.
Yeah.
And, the very nature of the extreme left is that they're loud and boisterous and in your face. So they're the same way on social media. So, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, that's
the
one thing I don't understand. They're always so loud.
Circle jerking.
I mean, why do you got to be so loud for? I don't understand that.
Loud. They're compensating for their lack of sexual attractiveness, I guess.
That's it. There you go. Yeah.
They remind me of parrots, in the jungle. Squawk, squawk, squawk.
Well, I think what they're compensating for, they're compensating for a lack of depth in the issues. I mean, they know the talking points.
It's a lack of argument.
Yeah, they know the talking points, but once you challenge their talking points, they're kind of lost because they're so used to the groupthink and being around people who agree with them, and so they never. I mean, God, I had a lot of conservative friends when I was in college. I had a lot of liberal friends when I was in college. I mean, we would debate for hours. I mean, even as a fraternity, we'd be out drunk all night. We'd come back, be hanging out. Somebody start talking politics.
Yeah.
And, it's these like 19, 20-year-old kids talking politics, drunk off our ass. But it would be some really good debates. I'm sure it didn't make that much sense.
People used to, when you're in college, people used to want to be smart. They would want to show off to their friends their debating skills, their logic and reasoning skills, how deep they were. Remember that phrase?
Yeah,
how
I was there. Yeah.
So, that kind of reminds me of my mom's friends, but to be honest, my mom was kind of a hippie when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And her friends would come over to my house and smoke pot and sit around and talk about everything. So, but it was about, hey, that's a really deep man,
Right.
So, politics, philosophy, it just, that culture is gone, and the discourse and that sort of thing. But there's no, they don't identify or have pride in being able to not only think for themselves, but able to have reasonable discourse. It's all just emotions-based, based on their indoctrination. And, you're right. They reach a boiling point pretty quickly. They're like that, whatever that chemical is that they put in those things you get at the fair when you hold the bottom and the bubbles come up at the top. So it's just the warmth of your hand that causes it to bubble.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There's blue-colored water and...
Well, see, that's the whole thing, like, in fact...
Whatever that chemical is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know, cyanide. No, it's not that. But
But that's what they are. They're just body temperature boiling point, and that's just no way to live. They're going to all be Xanax and hospitalized by the time they're 30.
well, when I was in college, like when you got to the upper level classes, not your survey classes, your first year where you have 300 people in a room with you, but when you got to the upper level classes, like your second and third years, a lot of professors would use the Socratic method. They play devil's advocate, and and they would encourage students to take up different positions, and then you'd kind of debate it out. But I don't think I don't think these professors could do anything like that. And in fact, these professors don't want to. They just want to tell you. And then if a student raises his hand and voices a disagreement, you've seen some of the videos. They get chastised by the professor, get called names and all kinds of things. They're like, "Whoa, man! I'm like some 18-year-old kid. I'm trying to learn. And so they don't want that. They just want to indoctrinate you, tell you what's wrong, and here's the solution, and that's it. And everybody gets an A. So if you're smart and you're in school, you kind of just have to shut your mouth, put down on paper what the professor wants to hear. I mean, you can be idealistic if you're in college and say, you know what, I'm not succumbing to the man. I'm going to write my essay the way I want. I'm going to participate in class the way I want, and the hell with the professor. Well, if whatever career you're going into requires you to have a college degree and then go on to graduate school, if you don't have the grades, you're not getting into a good graduate school. That's just the way it is. So, okay, yeah, you can be idealistic and, fight for the cause, but then you don't get to have your career, and then you end up doing something else for the rest of your life. I'm not sure we need to put that on the shoulders of these kids. Make them have to fight.
Well, here's another reason. Here's another reason why I have hope for the future generation is because they have something I didn't have, which is smartphones. So, a lot of these people are getting exposed.
Well,
now it's kind of on the shoulders of the parents.
Look, you and I both know. Okay, when I go to Google, search for stuff. Okay, I never watch CBS. I never watch CNN. Okay, I'm on the Fox sites and other conservative sites. And these CBS and ABC and CNN and MSNBC show up in my feed. Okay, yeah, they have smartphones, but who's controlling the algorithms on your searches? Okay, so again, back to the indoctrination. So
I meant recording their professors.
Oh yeah.
What I'm saying is, when I was in school and somebody was doing something outrageous and abusing their position, nobody, was their word against yours. But now you can video it.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's limited too. And then they'll find out who did
it. Of course it is.
And then you're getting an F. You'll be the only. Everybody will have an A except for you. You have a D. So no, I just feel sorry for these kids nowadays in school. It's like these institutions have gone away. But who's that one guy? Jonathan Haidt. He's doing a lot of work right now. Jonathan Haidt and his partner, God, they just wrote a book together. I bought the damn book. I got it laying around somewhere. Oh, no, I think I gave it away at the last fair I did. I had a bunch of conservative books that I bought because I buy them to support the authors, even if I don't have time to read them. So I had literally 40 books, brand new, never read. And so part of what I did, I gave away a bunch of free hats, my Carl YouTube channel hats, but I also gave away a bunch of books as well. So, but I gave away that book. It was Jonathan Haidt's book. Yeah. Well, I'm not I just buy them to support the author. I know I don't have time. Look, my profession, you don't have time to sit around and read a lot of books. You're reading a lot of other stuff, like police reports, briefs, that kind of stuff. So you really don't have time to say, oh, I'm going to read this 200-page book. Yeah, you get through about 8 pages, then it sits, and then you get through a chapter, then it sits. And then by the time you get back to it, you already forgot what was in the first chapter, and you lost the flow. So I gave up.
I just started getting into audiobooks this year for that reason, because I can be doing something else at the same time. I never thought I would like audiobooks because I enjoy reading. But to be honest, it's useful. I mean,
I've heard that. I've never done it myself, but I've heard that, what do you have, Kindle Cloud or something, or what do you use?
Yeah, I have a Kindle, and it's Kindle Fire, and I have with my Amazon Prime, I'm able to have, I think, 10 or 12 downloaded at a time for free, and you just rotate them because your membership pays for it.
Oh,
a lot of the books I want to read.
I did not know that because I'm a Prime member myself. I did not know that.
Yeah, so a lot of the books that I want to read are available as part of the Prime membership, like when you can watch movies on Prime Video.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of the stuff is for free.
Yeah.
Some of it is paid, but a lot of it is available, and then they rotate it too, just like with the movies. So if it's not available now, it might be, in a few months.
Oh,
So
wow.
I just, keep a few books
Yeah.
and rotate them. Hmm.
Well, I'll have to start looking into that.
Yeah. But that's but they have audiobooks as well, and so my Kindle Fire has been. I don't know if all the books are available on audio that I have, but I never really thought about it. But I am starting to use it, and so if I'm doing something with my hands, that's just sort of mildly mentally engaging, like painting or something,
Mm-hmm.
I can, because I also do that. I paint things.
Yeah, it's like listening to a podcast. Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Or driving, I'm driving. I can play my Kindle in the car.
Cool.
So
Cool.
anyway, yeah, it's cool. And you download it so that you don't have any.
Right, online issues. Right, you download it to your phone.
Loading
right.
issues. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
You download it while
the
you're at
book.
home, while you're close to your Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you're in the car, you don't have to worry
Exactly.
about trying to grab any kind of internet connection.
Yeah.
I do that with songs on
Yeah.
Google Play and stuff. I have all these albums downloaded for the same reason. I drive in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
dead spots out here in the desert. So, yeah, I have a lot of those songs downloaded on my phone. So, right. So, when I run into a dead spot, I can listen offline. Yeah. All right, young lady.
Well, good show tonight. I enjoyed your callers,
Yeah.
and I'll talk to you again.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Effie Real. Thanks for the letting me know about the volume in there. Totally appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Mr. Carl. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. And that was the great Effie Real. Always a good phone call. Always enjoy talking to her. She always has some good points to bring up. So we got this one story right here that we were looking at. Trump berates Biden media coverage. And he says, "I'm only here because of Biden and Obama." Yeah. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, he won that election, and it was a complete kind of, what's the word? It's late. I'm trying to remember the word now. Repudiation of the Obama-Biden years was definitely, because, I mean, his policies were just the opposite. I mean, you take Obama's policies that he stood for and Trump's policies that he stood for, it was like, night and day, literally. So to sit there and say that people who voted for him were not repudiating the policies of the last 8 years is nonsense. I mean, I voted for Obama twice, but my vote for Trump was because those policies were different, were better, and I knew he was going to get things running and get things working. So he says, "I'm only here because of Biden and Obama." There is truth in those words, and probably the mainstream media doesn't want to hear it, and I know Joe Biden doesn't want to hear it, and I know President Obama doesn't want to hear it, but it's true. There's nothing wrong with saying what's true once in a while. But anyway, let's take a look here at the story. All right, so let's scroll down here. From the Washington Times. President Trump mocked the media coverage of presidential candidate Joseph Biden, adding the former vice president's administration is the reason he was elected as president in the first place. Trump goes on to say, the media, fake news, is pushing Sleepy Joe hard. Funny, I'm only here because of Biden and Obama. They didn't do the job, and now you have Trump, who is getting it done. Big time, Mr. Trump tweeted. The president touted the success of Pennsylvania in another tweet, possibly mocking Mr. Biden's decision to hold his first rally in the state. Sleepy Joe Biden is having his first rally in the great state of Pennsylvania. He obviously doesn't know that Pennsylvania is having one of the best economic years in its history, with lowest unemployment ever, a now thriving steel industry that was dead, and a great future, Trump tweeted. Mr. Trump also criticized the International Association of Firefighters Union, saying its leadership doesn't represent the members who love Trump. Yes, that's one of the many things I like about Donald Trump. He's just like, they love me. They love me. They don't like me. They don't respect me. They love me. They love me. I mean, that's just classic. All right. I'll never get the support of dues crazy union leadership. That's a good line. Those people who rip off their membership with ridiculously high dues, medical and other expenses, while being paid a fortune. But the members love Trump. You look at our record economy, tax and regulation cuts, military, etc. Win, he said. The Jew-sucking firefighter. I'm sorry, I'm reading this for the first time. The Jew-sucking firefighters' leadership will always support Democrats, even though the membership wants me. Some things never change, he continued. Mr. Biden responded in a tweet, I'm sick. Wait, I got to try to imitate Joe Biden. Because, see, you got like a really old man, like who's kind of like, coming down with dementia. Early onsets of Alzheimer's, suffering from dementia. See, how do you imitate Joe Biden? See, I'm sick of this president. Bad-mouthing unions. Labor built the middle class in this country. Minimum wage. Overtime pay. 40-hour week. They exist for all because unions fought for those rights. We need a president who honors them and their work. Anyway, that's the best Joe Biden I could do. In an online video announcing the endorsement, IAF, International Association of Firefighters, General President Harold Shitberger called Mr. Biden one of the staunchest advocates for working families. Based on what? Joe's a lot like our firefighters. Oh, jeez. God. He's a problem solver. When? Who cares deeply about America. When? And committed to making our country better. What has he ever done to make our country better? Nothing. I mean, point to the legislation that made our country better. He was in the Senate for 30 years. What's the bill he sponsored that made our country better? Nothing. 30 years in the Senate. Can't point to one thing. Mr. Biden became the 20th high-profile Democrat to enter the already crowded field to challenge Mr. Trump in the 2020 election. While the former vice president wasn't successful, mind you now, okay, in 1988 and 2008, Mr. Biden has consistently been the front runner in polls, sometimes double digits, ahead of a second-place Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont. Idiot. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, 30 years in the Senate, 30 years, and you can't point to one thing he did, one bill that he sponsored, that he drafted, that made this country better. Nothing. For 30 years. Okay? He ran from Delaware. I mean, his family was in Delaware for years. His dad wasn't a coal miner. I was in Wilmington and with a friend of mine, and he even pointed out to the car dealership that Joe Biden's father used to own and manage. And it's funny because back in '88 when he said he plagiarized that story from that British MP about his dad, being a coal miner and stuff. And he said that, he goes, everybody in Wilmington's a small city, by the way, Delaware. It's a cute little town, but it's like a big town. I mean, it's got some nice office buildings because all the credit card companies are based out of there. But other than that, it's a small little town. And so everybody knows everybody. You run into them. I mean, you run them into the stores and the diners and stuff. So, he's driving by and he goes, oh, yeah, there's the dealership. And he was saying that when Biden made that speech about his dad being a coal miner, there wasn't a single person in town who didn't look at each other and go, what the hell is he talking about? He was talking to this one guy, he goes, hell, I bought my car from his dad, and I didn't buy it out of a coal mine. I bought it from that dealership right up the street. So, there you go. So there's their savior, Joe Biden. But, oh well. But anyway, hey, we've been on for a little over 2 hours. And it's been a really great live stream, great call-ins, by the way, and great people in the chat. So I want to thank everybody who's been in the chat, who called in. I want to thank all my moderators. Thank you for taking care of business. Like I said, when in doubt, take them out. Zero tolerance. So thanks, guys. I totally appreciate it. And I just want to say thanks to everybody who's watching now, and for anybody who will be watching later and viewing this video at a different time. So have a good one. You guys take care. You have a nice evening. Bye-bye.